A quiet walk that changed everything. Keanu Reeves didn't plan to be noticed that day. He rarely did. Dressed in a simple black hoodie, worn jeans, and a baseball cap pulled low over his face, he stepped out onto the quiet pathway of Whispering Pines Park, a small but serene green space tucked away from the usual noise of Los Angeles. It wasn't his first time here. In fact, whenever he needed to think or just escape the heavy noise of the world, this park was his sanctuary. The world knew him as a celebrity, a movie star, an icon. But inside, he was a man constantly searching for moments of peace, of connection, and sometimes of healing. The breeze was gentle that afternoon. Sunlight filtered through the tall sycamore trees, and the air was filled with the gentle sounds of kids playing, dogs barking in the distance, and birds chirping like they had important secrets to share. Keanu paused at his favorite spot, a wooden bench near a small pond, half shaded by a willow tree. He sighed, grateful for the moment. No paparazzi, no cameras, just life, unfiltered and raw. That's when he noticed her. She couldn't have been older than 8, a small girl with tangled brown curls, wearing a faded yellow dress and muddy sneakers. She was sitting cross-legged on the grass nearby, speaking softly to a large, scruffy-looking golden retriever who sat obediently beside her. Keanu smiled faintly. The way the dog tilted its head, as if it truly understood the child's every word, stirred something in him. He watched, not wanting to intrude. But then, something strange happened. The dog, alert, sensing something unseen, stood suddenly, its eyes fixed on Keanu. The girl followed its gaze and stood up as well. And just like that, she began to walk toward him. "Are you Keanu Reeves?" Her voice was small but clear. There was no fear, no hesitation, just wide eyes and a strange calmness, as if she had something important to say. Keanu gave her a soft smile and nodded. "I am. And who might you be?" "I'm Emma," she said, petting the golden retriever who had followed her. "And this is Ranger. He's my best friend." Keanu crouched slightly to meet her at eye level. "Nice to meet you, Emma. Ranger too." She stared at him for a moment, an intensity in her eyes that didn't match her age. Then she leaned in, her voice lowering. "I need your help." Keanu blinked. "Okay, what kind of help?" She glanced around, making sure no one else was listening. "It's about my mom." And Ranger saw it happen. He saw everything. Keanu felt his heart skip. The girl's tone wasn't playful. It wasn't the kind of imaginative tale a child would spin. There was fear behind her eyes. Fear and something else. Urgency. "What did Ranger see, Emma?" Emma looked down. Her hand gripped the dog's fur tightly. "My mom didn't fall. She didn't slip like they said. Ranger tried to stop it. He barked. He pulled. But no one listened." Keanu felt a chill. "Are you saying someone hurt your mom?" Emma nodded slowly, tears beginning to form in the corners of her eyes. "They said it was an accident, but Ranger knows. He's been scared since it happened, and he's been trying to tell someone. I think he knows who did it." Keanu's heart was now pounding. He looked around. Still no one seemed to notice them. "What happened to your mom, Emma?" "She's in the hospital. Coma. The doctors say she might not wake up." Keanu felt a wave of emotion swell in his chest. He gently placed a hand on Emma's shoulder. "I'm so sorry. But why come to me?" She wiped her eyes and looked straight at him. "Because my grandpa told me you listen. He said you help people, that you believe in things, even when others don't." The moment held. Silence. A little girl. A loyal dog. A broken truth. And Keanu, caught between a peaceful afternoon and the door to something far bigger than he expected. He swallowed hard, then pulled out his phone. "Emma," he said softly, "I believe you, and I'm going to help. But first, I need to make a call." He turned away slightly, heart heavy, fingers trembling, not from fear, but from something deeper. Compassion. He dialed 911. 911. What's your emergency? The dispatcher's voice came through. Keanu took a breath. This is Keanu Reeves. I need to report a possible incident involving a young girl's mother. She may have been harmed, and I believe the only witness might be her daughter and her dog. What happens next will test everything Keanu believes. As the call continued, Emma sat quietly on the bench beside Ranger. She clutched the dog tightly, whispering softly, as if calming him and herself. Keanu ended the call and crouched beside her. Help is coming, he said, but I want to know everything. From the beginning. Can you tell me what really happened? Emma nodded. But before she could begin, Ranger suddenly stood, his ears perked. A low growl rumbled from his chest. His eyes were fixed across the park, at something or someone. Keanu turned to look, and in that brief moment, everything changed. A shadow moved behind the trees, a tall figure, watching, waiting. Keanu's instincts kicked in. He pulled Emma close, placing himself between her and the trees. Who was out there? Why were they watching? Was this more than just a tragic accident? Or was it the beginning of a mystery that went deeper than anyone had imagined? Shadows in the trees, secrets in the silence. The breeze shifted, the lightness of the park, the warmth of the sun, the laughter in the distance, all of it dimmed the moment Keanu Reeves saw the figure step behind the trees. He'd seen that kind of movement before, not in movies, not in carefully rehearsed stunts, but in life. In those rare, sobering moments where instinct replaces thought, where your body tenses before your mind can ask why. Beside him, Ranger, the loyal golden retriever, stood rigid. His thick fur bristled. His growl deepened. His tail was stiff, no longer wagging like it had been just minutes earlier. And Emma, the brave little girl who had just shared a truth no one else seemed to hear, pressed into Keanu's side. Not out of fear, but out of trust. Do you see him too? She whispered. Keanu gave a slow nod, keeping his voice calm. Yes, I saw. He didn't move suddenly, didn't draw attention, but he glanced around the park, scanning for signs of health. A park security guard, a nearby parent, a jogger, anyone. But strangely, they all seemed distant now. Too far to hear, too far to help. He looked down at Emma. Stay close to me. Don't move unless I say. Understand? Emma nodded, clutching the dog's collar tightly. Then Keanu's phone buzzed. It was the 911 dispatcher calling back. He stepped away just slightly and answered. Yes. Mr. Reeves, we've dispatched officers to Whispering Pines Park. ETA is under 5 minutes. Are you still with the child? Yes, but someone's watching us. Possibly connected. Behind the east side tree line. Tall, male silhouette. Not approaching. Yet. We're redirecting officers to your exact coordinates. Stay visible. Do not engage. Understood, Keanu replied, ending the call. But something in his gut told him this wasn't over. Not even close. Unspoken warnings and an unlikely bond. Keanu crouched back down to Emma's level. Emma, he said gently, I need you to tell me exactly what happened the day your mom got hurt. Every little detail. Even the ones you're scared to say. Emma bit her lip. Ranger licked her hand. It was last Tuesday, she began. We were walking home from the store, just like we always do. Mom was holding the bag of apples. She was laughing because Ranger jumped into a pile of leaves. We were happy. Keanu listened carefully. Her tone, her pacing, the way her eyes darted around. She wasn't making it up. She was reliving it. Then we turned onto Hawthorne Street. That's where it happened. She swallowed. A man was there, standing by a black car. He had a hood on, like you. But he wasn't kind. He looked at us, then walked fast. He bumped into Mom. She told me to stay behind her. She dropped the apples. Ranger whimpered softly, almost as if he remembered too. He said something to her. I couldn't hear it all, but I remember the word proof. He kept asking where it was. Then he pushed her. Emma's voice cracked. She fell back and hit her head on the metal railing. Hard. I screamed. Ranger barked and bit at his leg, but the man kicked him and ran away. Keanu clenched his jaw. Did you tell the police this? He asked. Emma shook her head. They didn't believe me. Grandpa said not to argue, that we'd get in trouble. They said Mom fell while walking. Slipped. But Ranger remembers. He's been acting strange ever since. Ranger barked once, as if to punctuate her words. Keanu looked at the dog. There was something behind those deep brown eyes. Awareness, not just instinct. As if the animal had carried the weight of that secret alone all this time. But now, the burden was shared. The officers arrive. And so does doubt. The sound of sirens finally broke through the tension. 2 patrol cars pulled up near the playground. Officers stepped out, scanning the area. Keanu stood and waved them over. One officer, a woman in her early 30s with sharp eyes and a calm presence, approached first. Mr. Reeves, she asked. He nodded. Yes. Thank you for coming. This is Officer Valencia. We received your call about a possible assault involving a child's mother. Keanu gently guided Emma forward. This is Emma. And this is her dog, Ranger. She has something to share. Emma repeated her story, word for word. Ranger stayed close, alert, never taking his eyes off the tree line. Officer Valencia listened carefully. She didn't interrupt, didn't dismiss, just nodded slowly as Emma finished. When the girl went quiet, the officer crouched beside her. You're very brave for telling us this. I believe you. Emma blinked in surprise. You do? Yes, and I think Ranger does too. She gave the dog a soft scratch behind the ears. Another officer approached. We checked the east side tree line. No one there now. Tracks, maybe, but hard to confirm. Keanu looked at Emma. Do you think you'd recognize him if you saw him again? Emma nodded. Then we'll do everything we can, Officer Valencia said. But it might help to speak with a sketch artist, and we may need to talk to your grandfather. At the mention of her grandfather, Emma stiffened. He won't like it. He said it's better to forget. Keanu frowned. Why would he say that? Emma hesitated. I think he's scared too. Officer Valencia exchanged a glance with her partner. We'll handle it carefully. A promise made in the park. As the officers gathered more details, Keanu took a moment to sit beside Emma again. Hey, he said gently. I want you to know something. She looked up at him. You did the right thing. Telling someone. Trusting Ranger. Trusting yourself. She nodded. I just want my mom to wake up. Keanu placed a hand on her shoulder. And we're going to do everything we can to make that happen. You're not alone in this anymore. At that, Ranger climbed onto the bench beside Emma, nuzzling her affectionately. Keanu smiled at the sight. A bond. Unshakable. A girl and her dog. Protecting each other in a world too quick to look the other way. The officers asked Keanu if he could accompany them to Emma's house to help keep her calm during the questioning. He agreed without hesitation. The house with locked rooms and unspoken pain. They arrived at Emma's house, a small weather-worn cottage with peeling paint and a creaky fence. Her grandfather opened the door, an older man, gray-haired, with tired eyes and a limp. Emma, he asked, surprised. What's going on? Keanu introduced himself, followed by the officers. Emma stayed behind him. We're here to follow up on what happened to your daughter, Officer Valencia explained. The man's face tightened. We already gave our statement. Emma stepped forward. Grandpa, I told them the truth. His eyes flashed. Fear, not anger. Emma. She needs help, Keanu said gently. And she was very brave today. The man sighed. stepping aside. "Come in." Inside, the house was quiet. Too quiet. Curtains drawn. Photos missing from the walls, as if someone had tried to erase memories. A half-eaten meal still sat on the table, untouched. As the officers questioned him, Keanu noticed Ranger sniffing near a hallway door, one that was locked with a deadbolt. "What's in there?" he asked. The man paused. "Storage." But Ranger barked again, pawing at the base of the door. Keanu's gut twisted. Officer Valencia looked over. "Sir, we may need to check that room." The man hesitated, then, without a word, handed over the key. What they found behind the door would change everything. The beginning of the truth. Inside was a small room, cold and dim. Boxes lined the walls, but one corner had something strange, a metal filing cabinet. Unlocked. Inside were folders, papers, photographs. Photographs of Emma's mother. Hospital bills. Legal documents. A restraining order against a man named James Holloway. Officer Valencia pulled out a photo, a man in a hoodie, standing near a car. Emma gasped. "That's him. That's the man who pushed Mom." Keanu stood frozen. This wasn't just a family accident. This was a cover-up. And now, it was unraveling. The man in the photograph. A past that was never buried. The moment Emma saw the man in the photograph, her small fingers tightened around Ranger's thick golden fur. The dog let out a low growl, not of rage, but recognition, memory, pain. It wasn't just a picture, it was a ghost. Keanu Reeves stood beside her, his gaze locked on the image. He didn't speak at first. His mind turned slowly, deliberately, the way it always had when faced with a story that didn't fit together. In this photograph, the man wore a hood, but his face wasn't fully hidden. Dark, sunken eyes, a scar down the side of his cheek, the cold expression of someone who had long since stopped caring about consequence. And beneath the photo was the name that had gone unspoken until now. James Holloway. The same man Emma's mother had once filed a restraining order against. Officer Valencia set the photo down gently and turned toward Emma's grandfather, who stood pale and trembling in the corner. "Mr. Dawson," she said carefully, "why didn't you mention any of this?" The old man sank into the nearest chair, his voice brittle. "Because I was afraid. Afraid of what it would mean. For her. For Emma." Keanu knelt beside him, eyes calm but intense. "Afraid of who?" "Holloway." The old man looked away, shame flickering in his expression. "He's dangerous. You don't understand. That man doesn't just hurt people, he destroys them. Slowly. And when my daughter finally left him, she begged me not to tell anyone. Not the courts, not the police. She thought if we disappeared, he'd stop chasing us." Officer Valencia's brow furrowed. "You went off the grid. We tried. New name, new address, even Emma changed schools. But Holloway, he found her again." Emma looked up. That's why she was scared. That's why she always checked the locks at night. Ranger let out a small whimper, sensing the rising emotions in the room. Keanu's heart broke a little more. All this time, Emma had carried that fear silently, holding on to Ranger like a lifeline, watching the world pretend everything was okay, while she knew it wasn't. But now, the truth was in the open, and there was no turning back. A girl, a dog, and a locked room of secrets. Keanu gently asked Emma to stay in the living room while he, Officer Valencia, and her partner checked the rest of the documents inside the hidden storage room. Ranger stayed close to her side, his eyes never leaving the hallway. Inside the room, Keanu opened a weathered manila folder labeled "For Emma, if anything happens." His hands trembled slightly. Inside were letters, not printed documents, handwritten, emotional, raw. He read slowly. "Emma, if you're reading this, it means I'm not there to protect you anymore. But I need you to know one thing. You are the bravest girl I've ever known. And you have to keep being brave, even when it's hard. Especially then. Holloway may still be out there. He might come looking. But don't be afraid to tell someone. Find someone kind. Someone who listens. Someone like Mr. Reeves. He believes in good things. I saw him in the news once, helping strangers when no one asked him to. I hope you find someone like that. Keanu stared at the paper, stunned. Emma's mother had written this before the incident, before the fall. She had feared for her life and had left breadcrumbs of truth behind, not for the authorities, but for her daughter, for hope. He folded the letter carefully and slid it into his jacket pocket. A quiet drive to the hospital and a storm brewing inside. Later that day, Keanu insisted on accompanying Emma and Ranger to the hospital. The officers agreed. His presence calmed her, gave her strength. She had no one else. The hospital room was silent but sterile. Machines beeped, wires hummed softly, and on the bed, Emma's mother, Grace, lay motionless, her face pale but peaceful. Emma climbed up beside her slowly, gently taking her mother's hand. "She's warm today," she whispered. "That's a good sign, right?" Keanu stood at the foot of the bed. He wanted to say yes. He wanted to promise her miracles. But life had taught him that truth often arrived slower than hope, and much harder. Still, he nodded. "It is." Ranger placed his head on the edge of the bed, licking Grace's hand once. The gesture was so tender, so full of silent love, that even one of the nurses wiped her eyes. The doctor entered the room. "We've stabilized her. No brain swelling." "That's good. But we're still monitoring for signs of consciousness. It could be days. Or weeks." Emma looked up. "Will she remember what happened?" The doctor sighed. "It's hard to say. Sometimes trauma like this, it fades." But Keanu's voice cut in gently. "And sometimes, it comes back when it's needed most." The missing link. Ranger remembers. That night, Keanu stayed at the hospital. He couldn't bring himself to leave. Emma had fallen asleep in a chair, wrapped in a blanket the nurse gave her. Ranger lay curled up beside her, one eye always half open, alert and aware. Keanu sat by the window, watching the city lights flicker outside. But something kept tugging at his mind. Ranger. He turned to look at the dog. He wasn't just a pet. He was a witness. If Ranger truly remembered who attacked Grace, could they prove it? He remembered a story he once read during a film shoot about how service dogs were trained to identify people by scent, how some police departments even worked with therapy animals who could recognize aggressors by behavior alone. Could Ranger do that? He stood and crossed the room, kneeling beside the golden retriever. "Hey, buddy," he whispered. "You remember what happened, don't you?" Ranger blinked slowly. Then he looked toward Emma's mom, then back at Keanu. "I need your help," Keanu said. Ranger licked his hand once. It was enough. Back to the beginning. The park holds answers. The next day, Keanu met with Officer Valencia back at Whispering Pines Park. He brought Ranger with him. Emma stayed at the hospital with a nurse who had grown fond of her bravery. "I think we missed something," Keanu said as they walked the same path Grace and Emma had taken before the incident. He knelt at the railing, the same one where Grace's head had hit. "Look at this." The edge of the metal was scraped, bent inward slightly, not the result of a fall, but a forceful shove. And in the dirt nearby, barely visible, a shoelace. Not old, not worn, brand new. Officer Valencia picked it up with gloves. "We'll run a DNA test. Could belong to Holloway, if he was here." Keanu stood, looking around. Then he noticed something else. A street camera, mounted higher up on a light pole, facing the road, possibly angled just enough to catch the altercation. "We need that footage," he said. Officer Valencia nodded. "I'll get the request in today." Hope flickered again. A face in the crowd. 2 days later, the footage arrived. And there he was, James Holloway, walking behind Grace and Emma, hoodie up, hands in pockets. He didn't run, didn't lunge, But as Grace turned, he stepped forward aggressively. The camera caught the moment just before she fell, her arms thrown back. The struggle was blurred, but real. It was enough. Enough to reopen the case. Enough to issue a warrant. But by then, Holloway was gone. The chase begins. Part 3 ends not with resolution, but with movement. Keanu returns to the hospital to tell Emma the news. She listens, wide-eyed. "So we're not crazy?" she asked. "No," he said softly. "You were never crazy. You were right." And with that, she hugged him tightly. But just as they stepped into the hallway, a nurse rushed past them. "Code Blue, room 213. Keanu froze. "Room 213. Grace." He ran. The machines were blaring, nurses calling for the crash cart. Emma's scream echoed through the hall. "Mom." Between life and memory, when hope hangs by a thread. BEEP. BEEP. The sound of the heart monitor cut through the sterile air like a scream no one wanted to hear. Room 213. Grace. Emma's mother. Keanu Reeves stood frozen in the doorway, watching as nurses swarmed around the bed, their movements quick, precise, and desperate. Emma clutched his hand so tightly that her small fingers trembled, and Ranger, the golden retriever, barked once, a sharp, panicked cry, then whined, ears pulled back, sensing the chaos. "She's crashing," a nurse called out. "Blood pressure's dropping. Give her another push of epinephrine. We're losing her." Emma's eyes filled with tears, but she didn't cry out. She didn't wail. She just stared like a child who had witnessed too much pain for one lifetime and had grown used to hiding it behind silence. Keanu knelt beside her and held her shoulders. "Emma, listen to me. Whatever happens right now, you're not alone. I promise you. No matter what. I'm staying." She nodded, but her eyes never left the woman on the hospital bed, her mother, the only family she truly had. And for a moment, time stood still, the edge between life and letting go. "Charging to 200, a voice yelled. A defibrillator paddle was raised. The room lit with a flash. Keanu flinched. Emma turned away. Thump. The body jerked. Still flatline. Again. Thump. The heart monitor let out a long, painful tone. One beep. Then another. Beep, beep, beep. The team stepped back. A breath was held. And then, the doctor turned to them with a look of weary relief. "She's back." Emma exhaled so sharply that her knees buckled. Keanu caught her. "She's alive," she whispered. The doctor nodded. "She's stable, for now. But this was close. She needs rest, time, and maybe a reason to keep fighting." Keanu looked down at Emma. "I think she already has one." Memories that refuse to fade. Later that night, the hospital dimmed its lights. Visitors left. Rooms quieted. But Keanu remained. He sat at Grace's bedside, reading aloud from a book Emma had left behind. A children's novel with a folded corner, clearly a favorite. Emma slept curled in a chair nearby, Ranger's head in her lap. Keanu paused, gently closed the book, and looked at Grace. Her face was still pale, but something had shifted. A tiny movement in her fingers, a twitch near her brow. Her body wasn't lifeless, it was fighting. "Grace," he said quietly, "if you can hear me, your daughter is the bravest soul I've ever met. She saved you, and she's not alone. I'll stay as long as it takes." He didn't expect a response, but her fingers twitched again. Keanu leaned closer. Then her lips parted, just barely. A whisper, a breath, a word. He leaned in more. "Ma," he gasped. "Grace." But her eyes remained closed. Still, he rushed to the hallway. "Doctor," she spoke. She said Emma's name. Awakening. By morning, Grace opened her eyes. Not fully, not brightly, But enough. Emma was by her side within seconds, tears flowing freely this time, her tiny hands clutching her mother's fingers. Mom, Mom, it's me. Emma, I'm right here. Grace blinked, slowly but with intention. Her gaze moved from her daughter to the man standing behind her. She knew him, Keanu. She tried to speak again, but her throat was dry, her lips cracked. Keanu brought water, held the straw gently to her lips. She sipped, coughed, then breathed deeply. James, she rasped. It wasn't an accident. Keanu nodded. We know. You don't have to explain. Just rest. We're going to catch him. I promise. Detective Miles and the hunt for James Holloway. With Grace's fragile confirmation and the video footage from the park, the case officially shifted from accidental injury to attempted murder. The department brought in Detective Miles Carter, a seasoned investigator known for tracking violent offenders. Tall, in his early 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes, Miles didn't waste time with pleasantries. Holloway's a ghost, he said, flipping through the file. No fixed address. 3 aliases. A criminal record with sealed pages. Whatever he's into, it's deeper than domestic violence. Keanu frowned. You think someone's helping him? Maybe. Or maybe he's tied to something bigger. He was off the radar for 2 years. No activity. No credit use. Then he shows up right when Grace changes her name again. That's not coincidence. That's tracking. Emma sat quietly on the other side of the room, drawing pictures of her mom and Ranger with crayons. Why would someone help a man like that? Keanu asked. Fear, money, or both. Grace speaks the truth. 3 days later, Grace sat upright in her hospital bed, still weak, but able to speak more clearly. Keanu, Emma, Ranger, and Detective Miles sat around her. I left him after I found out what he was really doing, Grace explained. Not just abuse, not just control. He was involved in something illegal. I don't even know everything, but I saw enough. Documents, names, transactions. Did you copy anything? Miles asked. Grace nodded weakly. A flash drive. Hidden. But I never told anyone. I was afraid he'd hurt Emma if I did. Emma squeezed her mother's hand. It's okay now, Mom. We're safe. But Grace looked to Keanu. No, you're not. Everyone froze. He's not done. Holloway's not the kind of man to run. He's the kind that finishes what he starts. The warning comes too late. That night, as Keanu drove Emma and Ranger back to the safe house provided by the police, his phone buzzed. It was Officer Valencia. He answered. Keanu, where are you? Just pulled into the driveway. Get inside. Now. Lock every door. His gut dropped. Why? We just found a GPS tracker under Grace's hospital bed. Holloway knows where she is. He might know where you are too. Keanu didn't hesitate. He grabbed Emma from the back seat, lifted her into his arms, and sprinted for the door. Ranger barked furiously, running ahead like a soldier. Inside, Keanu slammed the door and locked it. Curtains shut. Lights off. The quiet was suffocating. Then, a tap. On the window. Slow. Deliberate. Emma screamed. Keanu grabbed a fire poker from the fireplace and stepped toward the glass. Nothing. Just darkness. But Ranger was growling like never before, ears forward, tail straight, his body between Keanu and Emma. Keanu backed away. He picked up the phone. Valencia, we need backup. Now. When the past comes knocking, Keanu faces the dark. The knock wasn't loud. It wasn't rushed. It was deliberate, like a heartbeat made of malice. Tap, tap, tap. Keanu Reeves stood just inside the door of the safe house, a cold fire poker clenched in his hands, eyes trained on the front window. Emma clung to Ranger, the dog growling low in his throat, standing as a living wall between her and the outside. The soft glow of a single lamp cast long shadows across the floor. In that moment, the warm lights felt more like targets than comfort. Keanu's phone was still pressed to his ear. "Officer Valencia," he whispered, "I need a full team here. Now. We're 3 minutes out. Do not engage. Stay inside. Lights off. Stay low." But it was already too late for silence. Another knock. Louder this time. More urgent. Tap, tap, tap. Then a voice, too calm, too confident. "I know you're in there, Keanu. I know she's with you, and I know what you've got. You think hiding behind a badge or a camera changes the truth. It doesn't. You should have stayed out of this." Keanu gritted his teeth. This wasn't just about Grace anymore. It wasn't even about Emma. This was personal now. The reckoning at the door. He moved quickly and silently, crouching beside Emma. "I want you to take Ranger and hide in the bathroom," he whispered. "Lock the door. Don't come out, no matter what." Emma's lip quivered. "But what about you?" Keanu looked into her eyes, those same deep, brave eyes that had held 1,000 secrets. "I've faced worse than him," he said softly. "And I've never lost a fight worth winning." Emma nodded. Ranger growled again, but obeyed as she tugged him toward the hallway. The front door rattled slightly. Then a sound, metal scraping against wood. Not a key, a tool. Someone was trying to break in. Keanu backed up into the kitchen, grabbed a second object, a heavy cast iron pan, and waited. The lock clicked. The door cracked open. Then it stopped. Silence. The crack widened slowly. Keanu braced himself, but instead of Holloway stepping through, a gas canister rolled inside. Smoke burst into the living room. White, thick, disorienting. Tear gas. Keanu's eyes burned. He fell to his knees, coughing, vision blurred. He heard Emma scream from the bathroom, muffled behind a locked door. Ranger barked frantically, scratching the door from the inside. Keanu crawled toward the hallway, blindly feeling for the wall. His mind screamed at him to stay conscious. Then he heard the door fully creak open. Boots. Someone stepped in. Not fast. Carefully. Like a predator. Help comes with sirens and steel. Outside, sirens blared. Officer Valencia and her team burst into the front yard. Red and blue lights cut through the fogged windows. A voice over a loudspeaker. "This is DHE Police. Come out with your hands up." Footsteps inside the house retreated. The front door swung open. A man in black, hood up, ran into the night. Officer Valencia chased after him, gun drawn. Suspect is fleeing on foot. Southeast side, cutting through alley. Another officer rushed inside, pulling Keanu to his feet. "Mr. Reeves, are you okay?" He coughed, waving the gas from his eyes. "Emma, Ranger, bathroom." They ran down the hall, kicked open the door. Emma was crouched in the tub, clutching Ranger like a lifeline. She looked up, tears streaming. "Did he hurt you?" Keanu dropped to his knees and pulled her into his arms. "I'm okay. You're okay." Ranger licked Keanu's face, and then Emma's, his tail thumping weakly, as if he, too, had feared he'd never see them again. The chase for Holloway begins. Officer Valencia returned 2 hours later, her uniform scuffed, her voice tense. "He got away. We tracked him to an abandoned storage facility downtown, but by the time we breached it, he was gone. Left behind some clothes, burner phones, and this." She handed Keanu a flash drive. No label, just left on the desk. Keanu took it and looked at Emma. "Do you think this is it?" she whispered. "Only one way to find out," he replied. The truth unfolds. Later that night, at the police precinct, Keanu sat with Officer Valencia and Detective Miles. A tech specialist plugged in the drive. Folders loaded onto the screen. Names, transaction logs, scanned passports, offshore bank accounts, photos of Holloway shaking hands with powerful figures, some wearing uniforms, some in corporate offices. "This isn't just abuse," Miles muttered. "This is organized. Blackmail, smuggling, bribes." Officer Valencia frowned. And Grace had access to this. No wonder he came after her. They found one final file, encrypted. The password field blinked. Keanu looked at Emma, sitting beside him quietly. "I saw her type a password once," she whispered. "It was my name." He tried it. Emma_2015. It opened. Inside, a video. Dated 2 days before the attack. Grace sat in her living room, looking directly into the camera. "If you're seeing this, it means I didn't make it. My name is Grace Dawson, and the man who tried to kill me is James Holloway. He is not acting alone. I've collected proof, transactions, deals, and threats, because I knew the police wouldn't believe me without it. I'm begging you, if you're watching this, protect my daughter, protect Emma, and whoever you are, don't let him walk away again." The video ended. Keanu closed his eyes. The truth was out now. And so was the danger. From bystander to guardian. The next morning, Keanu sat with Emma on a bench outside the precinct. The sun had just started to rise. "I used to think heroes only lived in movies," she said quietly. Keanu smiled. "You and Ranger are living proof that's not true." She looked up at him. "Why are you helping us? You don't even know us." He leaned back, watching the sky change color. "Because when I was younger, no one helped me. When I needed someone the most, the world just looked the other way." Emma reached for his hand. "Well, I'm glad you're in our story." Ranger barked softly, as if in agreement. Keanu chuckled. "Me too." But his smile faded quickly. Because he knew something now. Holloway wouldn't stop. Not until he was caught, or until someone stopped him. And Keanu was ready to do the latter. A plan of shadows. That night, Keanu met with Detective Miles and Officer Valencia at a secured briefing room. They reviewed the drive again. "This last folder," Miles said, pointing to a newly discovered archive. "Lists of drop locations, client names, and one marked as emergency exit." Keanu raised an eyebrow. "What's that?" "Probably an escape plan. Holloway's safe house, maybe even a route out of the country." "We need to catch him before he vanishes," Valencia added. "Because if he disappears this time, we'll never get him again." Keanu's voice was low. "Then we bring him to us." Miles turned. "What do you mean?" Keanu opened his phone and pulled up his social media. "Holloway doesn't like exposure. He operates in the dark. So let's bring him into the light." He posted a message. "To the man who hurt Grace and tried to silence her truth, your time is up. We have the evidence. We have the world watching. I'm not afraid of you. Keanu Reeves." Within minutes, it began to go viral. The final message. Later that night, Keanu received a video. Sent anonymously. He played it on his phone. Holloway stood in a shadowy room, his face partially lit. "You've made a mistake, Reeves. You think the world cares about one girl, one woman. I've erased people more important than her, but now it's personal. And you'll learn what that means soon enough." The video cut off. Keanu stood in silence. He looked at Emma, who was watching from across the room. She didn't speak, but she didn't cry either. She simply said, "Let's finish this." A trap in the light. When courage wears a child's face. Keanu Reeves stared at the blank screen where the video had ended. James Holloway's threat still echoed in his mind. You'll learn what personal means. But what Holloway didn't understand was that this was already personal, for all of them. For Grace, who had risked her life for the truth. For Emma, a little girl who refused to be silenced. For Ranger, a dog who'd fought like a soldier and loved like a guardian. And for Keanu, because for the first time in years, he'd found something he couldn't walk away from. This wasn't a script. This wasn't a role. This was real. The strategy of shadows. In a secure room at the downtown precinct, the air was thick with tension. Detective Miles Carter paced in front of a digital board covered with Holloway's photo, known aliases, and crime connections. Officer Valencia stood beside Keanu, reviewing maps, traffic routes, and building schematics. "We believe Holloway has an extraction route set up," Miles said, pointing to a location marked with red. "A private airstrip. He's planning to disappear. We can't wait for him to move." Valencia added, "We need to pull him out." Keanu nodded. "So let's give him a reason to come to us." Miles looked skeptical. "You're talking about bait." Keanu didn't blink. "I'm talking about truth. We leak part of the flash drive, enough to expose what he's hiding. Then we tell the world that Grace Dawson is awake and ready to testify." Valencia hesitated. "You want to paint a target on her back." "She's already a target," Keanu said quietly. "But now she has a shield. All of us." The broadcast that shook the city. 24 hours later, every major news station ran the headline. "Hollywood star Keanu Reeves helps expose criminal syndicate. Woman in coma awakens, names her attacker." Alongside it, carefully chosen documents from the flash drive leaked online. Proof of corruption, names redacted for safety, but enough to shake powerful foundations. And at the center of the storm, a single photograph. Grace, eyes open, holding her daughter's hand. And standing beside her, Keanu, expression calm but resolute, Ranger sitting loyally at his side. Emma had insisted on the photo. "We have to show him we're not afraid," she'd said. "Bullies run when you stand tall." Keanu had smiled. "You're already standing taller than most grown-ups I know." The response was electric. Millions watched, thousands commented, and somewhere in the shadows, Holloway watched too. They knew it, because that night, he answered. The message in the mirror. Keanu returned to the safe house to find the front gate ajar. He stepped inside, heart pounding. No sign of forced entry. No sound. Then he entered the hallway and froze. On the bathroom mirror, written in lipstick, "Last chance. Come alone. Midnight. Franklin Steel Mill. Or the girl disappears." He stared at the message, the red smudged, the letters angry. Emma appeared behind him. He was here. Keanu turned quickly. "Go back to your room, sweetheart." But she didn't move. "He won't stop, will he?" she asked. Keanu lowered to her level. "Not until we make him." Her voice was soft. "Then take me with you." "No." She looked him straight in the eyes. "Then take Ranger." A girl's best friend becomes a soldier once more. Midnight approached. The Franklin Steel Mill loomed on the edge of the city, abandoned for decades. Rusted beams, shattered windows. The perfect place for a final confrontation. Keanu drove alone. In the back seat, Ranger sat alert, wearing a custom vest with a small GoPro-style camera attached. The team at the precinct had wired it to stream directly to Officer Valencia's surveillance van parked 5 blocks away. "I still don't like this," she'd said earlier. Keanu had only replied, "Neither do I. But this ends tonight." In his pocket, he carried a copy of the flash drive. In his chest, a heartbeat that had never been more certain. The meeting of monsters and men. Inside the steel mill, silence ruled. Keanu stepped into the main chamber, an open space of twisted metal and echoing footsteps. From the shadows, Holloway emerged. Same hooded sweatshirt, same dead eyes. But now he carried a pistol. "You came," he said flatly. "Most people would have run." Keanu didn't flinch. "I've done enough running in my life. I'm done." Holloway smiled. "Where's the girl?" "Safe. Far from here. You don't get near her again. Then you die for nothing." The gun raised. But before he could fire, Ranger leaped from the shadows. He slammed into Holloway's leg, knocking the man sideways. The gun fired, missing. Keanu rushed forward, slamming the man's hand against a support beam. The pistol dropped. a struggle erupted. Fist against fist, man against evil, past against future, the fight for more than one life. The battle was brutal. Keanu wasn't a fighter by trade, but he was resilient. Holloway was heavier, faster, but Keanu had purpose. Each punch was for Grace. Each dodge was for Emma. Each roar of rage was for the boy Keanu once was, the one who never had someone to fight for him. At last, Holloway grabbed a rusted pipe and swung. Keanu ducked, then countered with a broken chain from the ground. He whipped it across Holloway's arm. The man staggered, dropped the pipe. Ranger lunged, knocking him backward into a pile of metal scraps. Then, red and blue lights burst through the broken walls. Police dropped to the ground. Officers swarmed in. Holloway tried to run, but Keanu tackled him one final time, pinning him until cuffs clamped around his wrists. It was done. The morning after, a world changed by truth. Back at the hospital, Grace wept quietly as she held her daughter. "He's gone," she whispered. "You're safe." Emma smiled, eyes wet. "You kept your promise." Keanu stood nearby, watching them with quiet pride. Then he felt a nudge. Ranger, tail wagging, nuzzled his hand. Keanu knelt and hugged him. "You saved her again," he whispered. "You saved all of us." What the world saw. The story broke across every news network. Dog helps take down wanted criminal, with help from Keanu Reeves and Brave Girl. From silence to strength. The true story of Grace Dawson's survival. When a movie star became a real-life hero. But none of them knew the real story. Not the way Keanu did. Not the way Emma and Ranger did. Not the way Grace had lived it. Because it wasn't about fame or headlines. It was about something much deeper. The quiet heroes, where hope begins again. The storm had passed. The sirens faded. The steel mill was silent now, its ghosts exorcised by truth, courage, and a dog who never stopped believing. Keanu Reeves stood beneath a rising sun, the horizon painted in soft hues of gold and crimson. His black hoodie was torn at the shoulder, knuckles bruised, and his heart still racing, not from fear, but from the weight of what was saved. In his hand, Ranger's leash hung loosely. Though the golden retriever didn't need it, Ranger stayed close by instinct now, like a soldier standing guard over his unit, over the family he'd chosen. And just beside them, standing in the hospital courtyard, was Emma. Her hair was tied back in a messy braid, her knees still scraped from the day Holloway had nearly ended everything. But in her hands, she held something far more powerful than fear. A book. And on the first page, written in blue ink, were the words, "For the bravest girl I've ever met, and the dog who taught us what loyalty means, Keanu Reeves." A visit no one expected. 1 week later, the hospital's recovery wing buzzed with quiet excitement. There were no flashing cameras, no paparazzi, just whispers among nurses and smiles that came with recognition. Keanu was back, but this time not in the shadows, not hiding behind sunglasses or security guards. He walked through the halls like a man who belonged, with Ranger at his side and Emma holding his hand. They entered room 213, Grace Dawson's room. Grace was sitting up now, her color returning, her eyes clear. She smiled as her daughter ran to her. "She's stronger every day," the nurse said. "I believe it," Keanu replied. Grace looked at Keanu with gratitude that didn't need words. But she spoke anyway. "You saved her. You saved me." He shook his head. "No, you both saved each other. I was just lucky enough to witness it." A call from the governor. 3 days after Holloway's arrest, Keanu received a private call in his hotel room. "Mr. Reeves," said the voice on the line, "this is Governor Shaw of California. I wanted to personally thank you for what you've done. Because of your actions, we've exposed a major criminal network, saved lives, and brought a dangerous man to justice." Keanu listened silently. The governor continued, "We'd like to honor you, Grace Dawson, and Emma at the State House next month. We'll also be awarding Ranger with the Medal of Animal Bravery, the first of its kind. Keanu smiled. Thank you. But it wasn't for the cameras. It was for her. He looked across the room, where Emma sat on the floor playing with Ranger. The girl who had trusted a stranger in the park. The dog who had never left her side. And a future that could now begin instead of end. Emma's first day back at school. The day she returned to class, Emma wore a new backpack, shoes that didn't have holes, and a necklace with a small charm shaped like a dog paw. Her teacher greeted her at the door, but Emma didn't say much. Until the class quieted, and the teacher asked gently, "Emma, is there anything you'd like to share with your friends?" Emma nodded. She walked to the front of the room, placed her drawing on the whiteboard, and cleared her throat. "This is Ranger," she said, pointing to her sketch. "He saved my mom. And this," she pulled out a photo from her pocket, "is Keanu Reeves. He's not just in movies. He listens. He believed me when no one else did. That's what makes someone a hero." The room was silent. Then a hand clapped, then another. And before long, the classroom echoed with the sound of a standing ovation. Not for a movie, but for a little girl and a dog. A quiet conversation on the bench. That evening, Keanu returned to Whispering Pines Park, the same bench where it had all begun. He sat down, placed his helmet beside him, and took a deep breath. The air smelled of jasmine and leaves. He heard soft footsteps behind him. Emma. She climbed onto the bench beside him. "Do you ever get scared?" she asked. Keanu looked at her. "All the time. But you never show it." He smiled gently. "It's not about showing it. It's about feeling it, and still choosing to do the right thing anyway." Emma leaned her head on his arm. "Do you think Mom will be okay now?" "I think she already is." "And Ranger?" Keanu looked down at the dog lying at their feet, head tilted at the sound of his name. "He's a hero. You both are." Emma was quiet for a long time. Then she asked something that caught Keanu off guard. "Do you have a daughter?" He blinked. "No, I don't." She nodded. "Well, maybe you do now." His heart clenched, then softened into something he hadn't felt in years. Not guilt, not sorrow, but belonging. He placed his hand gently over hers. "I'd be honored." A final note from Grace. Later that week, Keanu received a letter, handwritten. From Grace. "Dear Keanu, there aren't enough words in the world to explain what you did for me and Emma. You didn't just protect us. You listened when no one else would. You saw us. That may seem small to some, but to a mother fighting for her child, it means everything. Emma calls you her hero, but she doesn't realize she's mine. And yours. You've changed her life forever. And I think she's changed yours too. With all my heart, thank you. Please never stop being who you are, because the world needs more of that. With love and gratitude, Grace Dawson." Keanu folded the letter slowly, gently. He placed it inside his journal, beside the photos Emma had drawn. He didn't cry, but he smiled. 1 year later, a new beginning. The ceremony at the governor's mansion was quiet but powerful. Grace stood proudly beside her daughter. Ranger wore a small tuxedo vest and his shiny medal. Emma beamed as she held the leash. When Keanu was asked to speak, he said only this: "Sometimes we're asked to be in the right place at the right time. I didn't come here to be a hero. I just sat on a park bench one afternoon and chose to listen. And that made all the difference." The room stood and applauded. Not for fame, not for film, but for truth, for bravery, for love. The final scene. Ranger runs free. Back in Whispering Pines Park, Emma ran across the field, Ranger chasing after her. Keanu sat on the same old bench, watching them with a soft smile. No words, just wind, sunlight, and laughter, a moment that didn't need a camera to feel eternal. He looked at the sky, then closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, he saw not the ghosts of his past, but the bright, boundless future he had helped shape. All because he chose to stop, to listen, and to care.